First, we're gonna watch our boy on the Breakfast Club. We'll find out what he's all about. I would say like the Breakfast Club is a little late to jump on the train here, but that's not necessarily true because I just don't think people have been paying attention anyway. It would have been nice if it came sooner, but I mean, this guy came out of nowhere. A few months ago, they wouldn't even known he would have been a guy. Who knows, right? But he's the guy. So at least they gave him a little platform. And we're gonna hear him out.
Wake that ass up. In the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Just Hilarious, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building. He's running for mayor of New York City. We have Zohran Kwame Mamdani.
Nailed it.
Hey,
Nailed it.
There we go. There we go.
That's that.
You gave him a great tutorial right before we started.
Absolutely. And I'll take it.
If you don't know, ask.
That's right. That's what I do.
I was going to say it was off the top of the dome, but
Now,
we can say
I
it's
did
tutorial.
see your video. Before we get into politics, I did see your video. You were a rapper.
You got a bop. You got a bop on your hand.
I was an aspiring rapper.
Aspiring rapper.
Nobody.
Oh,
would
he's
vote
still
for
a
you based off what
rapper.
I heard. In that rap, okay?
And that's why I'm not a rapper anymore.
Based off the quality of that rap, nobody. Will vote
You see,
for
to be the mayor, you have to know what you know and know what you don't know.
Got you.
And I learned quickly what I didn't know.
You really wanted to like pursue a rap career at one point?
There was a point. I mean, it was at the level. So I was born in Kampala, Uganda, in
Okay.
East Africa. And there was a point where there was a guy I grew up with. He's like my brother. The two of us were rapping together, and I was trying to
he's
sell
33.
mixtapes on a public bus, which doesn't leave until it fills every single one of the 14 seats. That's how much we were trying.
Wow.
And here I am, because it didn't really work out all that well.
It was kind of like Yin Yang Twins, where they were whispering.
the
I heard him.
I like the beat.
Was there an inspiration for you, the Ying Yang Twins, the Whisper song?
I have to say that was an inspiration for the song I made called Nani.
Yeah.
But I think, for me, it was also a way of just telling the different stories of what I grew up with.
Got you.
And especially in Kampala, I'm
He's being a little bit modest. I forget what the movie's called, but there was like a 2016 Disney movie that him and his boy did songs for. Like he was doing all right as a rapper. He's being pretty modest here, I think.
Ugandan of Indian origin. The guy that I grew up with, his name is Abdul. He is Ugandan by way of South Sudan. It's all these different cultures coming together. We were trying to mix it all in. And then when I was here in New York City, just trying to kind of, the song that I made was a testament to my grandmother.
Got
And
you.
how she's a real badass.
By the way, I just want to put this. The reason I wanted to watch this is because this dude is a masterclass in terms of how to talk to media, and like the Breakfast Club is somewhat sympathetic, but also like they're definitely not like they're like, I guess, kind of progressive leaning. They're kind of liberally, I don't know. But also like Charlamagne wasn't really a fan of Bernie back when Bernie was popping. Like they're not really progressive. They're a little bit more, I won't say like centristy, because I definitely think they're liberal leaning, but basically like this isn't like they don't usually like fuck with candidates like him, right? So I'm just putting that out there to say like this isn't like they won't like their goal isn't to like promote him or something like that, right? So this is just, they're just probably going to be pretty fair to him, and just as an example of how this guy handles kind of mainstream media, like typical media, I wanted to show this off.
And how so often when we talk about our elders, we put them in a box.
I haven't
a
watched
nice,
it, though.
gentle person who, is very much constrained in how we imagine them. And I wanted to just be a little more absurd in the celebration of a woman who gave me a sense of the world and was a social worker and should be a little more celebrated.
And disciplined you.
Love that.
And disciplined you.
a few slaps in Jackson Heights hurt nobody.
Oh, you got slapped?
In the video,
Oh, you got
yeah.
old school discipline.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
in that video,
Yeah.
not by my grandmother.
So question, in real life, when you do make the pivot to, do what it is you're doing now, do you say to yourself, all right, scrub all that shit off the internet. We got to get rid of that.
No, because I think that it's about being a real person. Like I enjoyed that
True.
time in my life, and ultimately I actually see a through line between that work and this work in that you're trying to tell a story.
Got you.
And when you're trying to sell a mixtape or you're trying to get somebody's signature to get on the ballot at 6:30 in the morning, at the Broadway stop of the NW in Astoria, it's the same thing where you're asking someone, can I have a moment of
Oh,
of your time to tell you about my story or our story. And it also means learning how to deal with rejection very quickly.
Got you.
Because once you've tried to be an artist, once you tried to be a rapper, you know what it means to be humbled
Yeah, when
on
somebody
a
tells you that you
regular
whack.
basis,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you know what it means to be the opener to the opener to the opener to the opener to the opener. And I think too often in politics there's a real sense of self as if people should be excited to see you, when in fact you should be excited to see them, right? We shouldn't be lecturing people as much as we should actually be listening to them.
Right.
And I think that, you know, struggling through being an artist, it was very helpful in learning that.
I thank God nobody told you to use any of that hip hop stuff for your campaign. 'Cause that's what they do. This is how you reach certain demographics. They're like, please, I thank God they didn't tell you to do that.
Don't
Charlemagne's. I get what he's saying. I feel like Charlemagne's also a hater. I feel like Zohran's his raps aren't that bad.
worry, it's not coming.
Now, how'd you get into politics? What got you into politics? Because some of your policies that
Like,
you
I agree, don't try to use hip hop to like appeal to certain demographics. That's a very salient point, but like it wouldn't have helped, but I don't think it really would have hurt that much, you know? Especially like he's not just a politician who started rapping, he's been rapping for over 10 years, so if he wants to rap in a campaign video, I don't know. Clearly they decided not to do that. I don't blame them, because I don't think it would have helped, but it probably wouldn't have hurt it. It probably would have been fine. Like, who cares?
we'll discuss. I don't see happening, but I love it. So let's start how you got into politics at first.
So the first time I knocked on doors was in 2008 for Obama. The first time I knocked on doors in New York City was when I picked up a copy of The Village Voice and I saw that one of my favorite rappers, Heems, had endorsed his childhood friend for city council. And I was like, oh, this guy would be the first South Asian elected official in New York City. His name was Ali Najmi. And so I got on the F train. I went to 169th and I knocked on doors for Ali.
He likes
And
teams
that
too.
was the moment where I started to get involved.
My
in
buddies
local
would be
politics.
pumped.
I
They're
joined a
big
club
ass
called
racist
the Muslim
people.
Democratic Club in New York. And then in 2017, I worked on my first race. That was for a Palestinian Lutheran minister in Bay Ridge called Qadr El Yatim. And that just changed my life because, you know, I moved to this city when I was 7. This is the city I fell in love with, the city where I got my citizenship, where I got married. And yet there was also a point where I knew I was a New Yorker. I didn't know if I had a place in New York City politics. I thought those two things were separate. And then there was this campaign which showed me that there was room for all of us. And you didn't actually have to give up any of yourself to be a part of it. And that inspired me to understand that politics isn't just something that you believe in, it's also something that you do as an active thing. And from there, I kept working on campaigns. And then in 2020, I ran for the state assembly, and now I represent Astoria and Long Island City.
Wow. You know, the USA, the USA Today asked a question, and the question is simple. Can an AOC-backed socialist upset Andrew Cuomo in the New York City's mayor race? I want you to answer that question.
There's a short answer, which is yes.
Okay.
And there's a longer answer, which is the fact that
Dude, how are you even asking that question? AOC upset Joe Crowley. This is going to be the biggest upset since then, and Zohran is more progressive than AOC, and obviously mayor of New York is the most powerful mayor in the country and just one of the most powerful positions in the country.
New Yorkers are hungry for a different kind of politics. We have
course he can
seen
do
the
it.
same politicians with the same ideas lead us to the same results for decades. And this is in many ways a question of whether
I mean, Joe Crowley didn't even have 14 women saying that he fucking groped her or them, and, you know, AOC still beat that guy. So how's Cuomo going to beat Zohran?
we want to go back to the past or whether we want to go to the future. And our campaign is one that sees this city under attack in two ways. An affordability crisis on the inside. We're the most expensive city in the United States of America. 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty. The rest are living in a permanent state of anxiety about whether they can keep affording this city. And then we're under attack from the outside from a Trump administration that is hell-bent on going after not only New Yorkers, but frankly, democratic cities across the country, like we're seeing in Los Angeles right now. And I am going head-to-head with Andrew Cuomo, a former governor who's the son of a former governor, whose super PAC is funded in large part by the same billionaires who put Donald Trump back in the White House. That's not the kind of person who can stand up to authoritarianism without seeing a reflection of themselves. We need someone who will actually fight both of these crises at the same time, and that's why I believe that I can win, and I'm so excited to have Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's endorsement in doing that.
I wanted to ask, you know, some of the policies that you stand on is free bus service in New York City.
Yes, sir.
Could that actually work?
Absolutely. You know,
Break it down.
So I grew up in Morningside Heights. I would take the 1 train. We used to have the 9 train back then, but I would take the 1 train to 231st, get on the BX10 to go to Bronx Science. And I remember when I'd get off the 1 train, if I could still see the bus, even if it was 2 stops away, even if I had missed it, I knew I could catch up to it.
Of course.
Because that's how slow that bus was. I'd be slapping the back of the bus and I could get there in time. It was good for me. It's bad for New York City. You should not be able to catch that bus if you miss that bus. But the buses are so slow. So as a state assembly member, I won the first of its kind fare free bus pilot. We made 1 bus route free in every borough of New York City. And we secured $15 million to do so. And it showed that ridership went up by up to 38%. Assaults on bus drivers went down by 38.9%. And of the largest increase of riders came from New Yorkers making $28,000 a year or less. And
people punching bus drivers because the buses are
it's not just about economic access. It's also about public safety. It's also even about environmentalism, because we're seeing that 11% of the new riders, they were previously driving a car, taking a taxi. Now they're off the road. They're on public transit. And the cost of doing all of this is about $700 million a year. Now, that sounds significant, which it is, but just want to put it into context. We're talking about that in the context of a city budget that's about $113 billion a year. State budget, about $252 billion a year. There is money. The question is what we spend it on. And what I've proposed is that we raise $10 billion to pay for our entire economic agenda and start to Trump-proof our city, because we know he'll use federal funding as leverage over this city. And we will do so in 2 key ways. The first is to match the state's top corporate tax rate to that of New Jersey. We are at 7.25%. They're at 11.5%. Corporations can pay it over there. They can pay it over here. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't just apply to corporations headquartered in New York City. Because when you say this, people will say, well, they're going to go to Florida. Wherever you are headquartered, as long as you do business in the state of New York, you are taxable for that corporate tax. We're talking about corporations that are making millions of dollars, not in revenue, but in profit. And the second is taxing the top 1% of New Yorkers. We're talking about people who make $1 million a year or more, taxing them just by a flat 2% tax increase. And I know if 50 Cent is listening, he's not going to be happy about this. He tends to not like this tax policy, but I want to be very clear. This is about $20,000 a year. It's a rounding error. And all of these things together, they make every New Yorker's life better, including those who are actually getting taxed.
Now, you also want to cut the police budget, and people are upset about that, right? They feel like crime is all over the place. I think a couple of days ago, 2 people got shot in Times Square. The other day, I think another girl got shot in the face in the Bronx. So people are very scared. It seems like New York is getting worse than getting better. So what do you say that, at a time like this, cutting the police budgets, that seems like that is taking more police officers off the street?
I want to be very clear. We are not defunding the police. What we are talking about is sustaining the number of police that we have within the police department. And when I talk to those police officers themselves, they tell me they signed up to join the police force to tackle serious crimes. And yet what they're being asked to do today is serve as mental health professionals and social workers. The same officers who thought they'd be responding to shootings are picking up the 200,000 phone calls a year of mental health calls. And what we've seen elsewhere in the country is you can actually move mental health calls out of the police department. That can reduce the calls that police have to deal with by 20%. And in doing so, you can increase police response times to those major categories of crime. And I think that's important because police...
Yes, this is highly Minecraft. It's 1.22. It's the new version.
Have a critical role to play in public safety. And
you missed the Heems reference.
Ask them to just focus on their job and not ask them to do every
yeah,
job.
Man. The
because
world
what we're seeing
generation
right now
is sick.
Is these same politicians who have given us...
He was talking about how Heems is one of his favorite rappers because he was a rapper before he became a politician, and because he's just based.
Lack of public safety over so many years, telling us that their only answer, no matter the question, is to ask police to do more. I want them to do the thing that they signed up for and to have a Department of Community Safety with teams of dedicated mental health outreach workers at the top 100 stations with the highest levels of mental health crisis and homelessness. We have to deliver public safety.
And when those calls come in, and people are saying, hey, somebody's over here having an episode, the police, I think, should be going out there with the mental health professional. Let the mental health professional be the person who tries to diffuse that situation.
Backing them up.
And, even if you want, I think I can't tell you how to say things, but
no, please.
If the NYPD got a budget of $10.8 billion, does all of that really need to go to the police? They're already super underpaid, so where's that money going anyway? So why not take some of that money and invest it into other alternatives to respond to things like mental health crisis?
And that's what I've said, which is that we have to work backwards from, does every dollar we spend go towards public safety? The critiques that I've said of the NYPD have been that they don't need an 80-person communications department. That doesn't actually deliver public safety. That delivers us drone footage. Right? We can actually rapidly downsize that. And I've been heartened to see the current commissioner took that 80 and made it 40. And I've also said that we don't need to have a more than $1 billion police overtime budget. And usually when you say that, people frame it as if you are going after the police. But when you ask the police, there are 200 officers leaving the department every month. And one of the leading causes is forced overtime because of quality of life. They don't know when they're going home. They're working doubles and triples. This is actually something that can make it easier to do that job and ensure that we're actually responding to this, because what we have right now is not working. You know, I sat with the family of a New Yorker named Win Rosario, who's a young New Yorker who was going through a mental health crisis. He called 911 himself, asking for help. 2 police officers who were trained in mental health assistance were dispatched to his home, and they killed him within 3 minutes on camera in front of his mother and his brother.
So they were trained in mental health?
They were trained. And my point here is that serves no one. That family grieves him every single day. And we all know that that was not the way to respond to this. So why don't we actually look at what works elsewhere in the country and bring it here? And that's what we're talking about, evidence-based policy solutions that will deliver real public.
Charlemagne's face right now, he's like, damn, am I really about to vote for a socialist? Like, I can tell it's getting to him.
Maybe we stepping on our own point. If they were trained, when you say trained in mental health, what is that? Trained to know how to respond to people dealing with crisis?
These police officers were given the training that right now we're being told is sufficient. Mm-hmm. And my point here is that we should not be training police officers for mental health response. We should have mental health responders be the ones who are actually the ones there.
Gotcha.
And this addiction to asking them to do everything, it's one that leaves them unable to do many things. Because right now, as you were saying, New Yorkers, when they're worried about safety, they want to know, what's your plan? 65% of crimes from the first quarter of this year are currently unresolved. That's partially because we're asking the police to do everything.
I get what you're saying.
So
you know what else they should do? They should.
It feels like crime's not increasing. The police are just solving less crime somehow with all the surveillance we have and all the technology and shit we have. It's like crime is going down, except for probably like some petty crimes in some areas, like jaywalking, shoplifting, toothpaste. I don't know. But then, like, the cops they're not solving as many of the crimes. Like, what the fuck?
Police officers should be having their own mental health evaluations. Like, that should be part of the...
Oh, yeah. Just wait. We'll get through this video. There's a few more short videos I want to watch. You'll be huffing the hopium. This guy has given me so much hope over the last week.
I think that's also part of why
we might actually be on our way back to the right timeline.
To work triples.
It's going to be Bernie, AOC, and Zohran here. Those are the 3 politicians that are really going to stick out in the popular imagination from this time.
I want to ask about congestion pricing as well. You know, you talk about free buses, which sounds great. But now you got free buses, but then when you drive to the city, you charge me $30 to get to the city. So what's your thoughts on congestion pricing and how it's affecting businesses in New York?
So I believe that the one thing New Yorkers hate more than a politician they disagree with is one they can't trust. So I'm going to tell you the answer I say in every room. Mm-hmm. I am somebody who has supported congestion pricing.
Oh.
I know. I wanted to tell you the truth.
Jesus.
I want to say it to your face, though. Oh. I've supported it for a few reasons. Because I believed it would reduce congestion. It would increase bus speeds, it would raise revenue for the MTA, and it would improve air quality. And that's what we've seen it be able to do. At the same time, I have always believed it needs to be paired with immediate public transit improvements. I launched a campaign called Get Congestion Pricing Right with the Deputy Majority Leader of the State Senate, Mike Gianaris. The two of us won about $12 million in new bus service. I'm proud of it, but it's not enough. And the reason I fought for that is when you look at the implementation of congestion pricing in places like Stockholm, London, the first day they had increased public transit, because I think it's important to tell New Yorkers that it's not just about raising revenue for public transit. It's also about giving them a better option right there.
I mean, if this guy can go from polling at like less than 1% to leading the race within a few months when all these billionaires are behind Cuomo and he has the name recognition in New York of Cuomo, the thing that gives me hope is that I think the conditions, like a big political change, a political revolution, like Bernie used to talk about, we're close to it. The material conditions might not be quite right, but they must be pretty damn close if an immigrant from Uganda who is very clearly brown can do what this man is doing right now. Although he's like abnormally talented in every way as a politician. We'll see some of his campaign videos after this. They're insane. He's setting a whole new standard for how campaigns do videos and like ads and stuff like that. He's so good in front of the camera, and just his answers are, if you got most candidates to sit down and think for like 2 hours, like writing out their best answer to a question, he can just like say on the spot, off the dome, he just like has a better answer ready. And like the other politicians couldn't sit there and think about it for a long time and write a better answer if they tried.
Some people
He's
who need to
abnormally
drive, there are also others
talented.
for whom that's the most convenient option.
Kind of
We need
crazy
make
to
public
watch.
transit the most convenient one, but it's hard when you look at your app and you're told a bus is coming in 10 minutes, and then you wait 10 minutes and then that bus doesn't actually show up. And so we need to earn that trust. That's where my position is.
How is it affecting businesses in New York City, though? I mean, I know a lot of restaurants are charging a congestion fee tax, and prices are. Everything is expensive. I mean, the other day I went to McDonald's. I got my kids one meal, and that one meal is usually $2.99. When I was a kid, it's now $12.
You bought all your kids one meal times that hard?
Yeah, absolutely. They got to split it up. We got to split it up. That's how it's expensive out there.
That's
Jesus
crazy.
Christ.
Hey, you want to let me some? But
That's
so,
crazy.
so how is it affecting business? Especially small businesses. The main businesses,
Yeah, 25% of Trump voters have regrets or are disappointed in him.
What
So
we've actually
just
seen is
a lot for
since
Trump
it's been
voters,
implemented, foot traffic has increased in the central business district, and I think that's a big part of it. Is that actually when you make it easier to get around that
number's only going to go up, obviously.
More business. And an interesting thing that I've also seen is that noise complaints are down by a significant amount because you have reduced congestion, and that's a difference also in quality of life. But I think to your point, small businesses. Small businesses are struggling in New York City. They employ a majority of all New Yorkers who are working in the private sector. We put forward a small business proposal where we would cut fines and fees for those businesses by 50% across the board. And we would do that because the city has a $113 billion budget. It is not funded through these fines and fees. It doesn't mean that much to the city if it gets $100 from a restaurant because they have a refrigerator every year. But for that restaurant, those are the kinds of things that can add up. And so we're going to...
Like, I appreciate all this. I'm glad he's just talking about his shit and not talking as much about Cuomo right now. But, like, are people really thinking I'm not going to vote for Zohran because I'm not sure about this congestion pricing thing and how it's affecting street traffic in downtown Manhattan or whatever, when, like, the alternative is rapist, corrupt Cuomo, like, who already resigned in disgrace as the governor? Like... It gets to a point where it's kind of silly to have these conversations, right? Like if he was running against someone like Trump, it shouldn't be a concern. Like, oh, I'm not sure about this congestion pricing. It starts coming off a little bit like concern trolling.
To cut that in half, and we're also going to make it easier to open them, because right now
I think like
you want to open a barbershop in New York City.
Among these people who are clearly progressive leaning, like it's still good to have these conversations for sure.
Got to go to 7 different agencies, fill out 24 forms, and then attend 12 activities. That does not make it easy to open a barbershop. We need to actually follow the example of Pennsylvania, where they took an 8-week permitting process and made it just a couple days. And that's why we said we're going to have a mom and pop czar. We're going to increase funding for one-to-one small business services, because we have to make it easier to survive in this city. And city government has to understand its role and responsibility in that, because I'm tired of politicians pretending like we're just bystanders to all these crises. I'm texting out thoughts and prayers so the small business just closed, but actually my policies are helping it to close. We need to make sure that that's not the case any longer. I want to ask you, I'm asking you to define something, but when you answer it, I want you to, think about how you would define it to somebody if you was writing a rap. Like, now, I don't want you to rap what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Look, I know you don't like the raps.
I don't want you to rap. I'm just saying that the way you would approach a rap, the audience you're trying to talk to, and you would probably keep things on the ground.
This is where I lose the election right here.
How would you define being a democratic socialist? To just somebody that...
So some of my favorite songs, they start with an old quote. That's how a song might begin. And so for me, one of them is from Dr. King. Call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there must be a better distribution of wealth for all people in this country. for all of God's children. And ultimately, to me, it's about dignity.
He just wrecked that. Like he just wrecked that question. Like Charlemagne can't like he just won. He just like, not that Charlemagne was trying to do a gotcha, but that would be the kind of gotcha that, you know, mainstream he turned that into a gotcha for the interviewer. Like he got the interviewer with that answer. What are you gonna say?
The
no,
person who
MLK
gave
was
me this
stupid.
language of calling myself a democratic socialist is Bernie Sanders. When he ran in 2016 and his relentless focus on income inequality, it taught me that things could be better than they were. So often when you're voting, it feels like you're voting between somebody who wants to wipe you off the face of the earth and someone else who wants to tell you to celebrate the crumbs that can't feed your neighbors. And to know that it could be more, that you could be voting for something.
And yeah, I heard the 407 was temporarily
that,
free.
You know, as a
I know they're doing. I read in the news they're doing something
explain what all of these things mean.
strange with the 401, the biggest highway in Canada, where they're doing expansions on it, but like rushing it through, and like they can basically ignore all laws, all environmental laws, all indigenous rights laws to do what they want with it. So it's a little bit sketchy, but yeah, at least the 407 is
free
doing stuff.
healthcare. What else?
I mean, anything that's necessary, right? It's like when people, whatever you need to live in this city.
But yeah, if it wasn't abundantly clear, this dude actually has a message, right? He's running on the Bernie vibes.
But there's certain things we've picked and chosen and said, you know what, you don't need that for housing, or you know what, you don't need that for food, and I think that we can't let the market determine who gets to live that dignified life. This is not to say that it's city government's job to deal with everything, but for that which is necessary, we have to ensure that we are doing our part. And that's why I have said I'm going to freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants, because that's the mayor's power. The last mayor did that 3 times. This mayor raised the rent 9%. He wants to raise it again up to 8%. We have these tools. It's just a question of, do we want to do this? And I know why politicians don't, because there's a lot of pressure. You know, I'm the candidate running to freeze the rent. Cuomo's the candidate running to raise the rent. That's why the landlords of those same units just gave Cuomo $2.5 million. The same landlords that say they don't have enough money to be able to freeze the rent just found $2.5 million to give it to him. The single largest check in this entire race. But it helps let people know that's what's on the ballot. It's straightforward. It's, do you want your rent to be the same, or do you want it to?
And it's funny to me how many like people, like obviously if you go on Twitter or something, all the bots on there are like, freezing the rent is communist, all this craziness, right? Like people act like it's so extreme when it's like the mayor, like the current mayor is a corrupt ghoul, but the mayor before that, who was like, okay, he wasn't even like that, like radical or anything. He already froze the rent. Like this is already something that's been done in recent memory by just like a standard Democrat. So it's pretty funny how they attack him over it.
I saw your rent was $2,300 a month.
Like the media in general freaking out about
Jesus
that.
Christ.
Yeah.
Was 500 square feet?
It's not too much more than that. Let me tell you.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because Democrats have created all this new politically correct language for everything: gender, sexuality, pregnant women. How come y'all haven't found a better way to discuss socialism? Why is socialism a dirty word when essentially all you want to do is take care of people?
I don't think it should be. I think it's actually a word.
Dude, Charlemagne just perhaps unwittingly just asked like one of the most salient questions you could ever ask a Democrat. Like, why are you guys so concerned about sexism and racism and homophobia and all this shit, and you have all your language you employ, right? Why don't you talk about fucking classism? Why don't you have the same kind of like framing around economics of like, these are oppressors, we are the oppressed? Like, why does that not happen? And obviously the answer is because most Democrats are taking big corporate money. Like Obama will say anything nice sounding under the sun unless it threatens capital, unless it threatens the billionaire class. He will never present any kind of opposition or adversarial, words, even not even actions, even words. They're afraid to even say anything. So I think what Charlemagne's asking here is super valid in terms of like, why don't y'all talk about economics, and why isn't that a thing? And obviously Zohran's not like the typical Democrat, so he's gonna answer.
Word that when you break down its meaning, like you just have done, is one that many Americans agree with. And we've seen that despite all the attempts, Bernie Sanders continues to be one of the most popular politicians in America. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, similarly. And they have both defined themselves in that same language. And I think it's that.
But I think it's because they tell, more so nowadays, instead of just leaning on the word socialism, they just tell people, you should have free health care. You should have a free education. You should be able to make a livable wage. You know, they should increase the minimum wage. Like, those are just simple concepts that are all socialism.
Yeah.
Well, for some reason, y'all still find yourselves tripping up over that word, or letting the other side use it as a dirty word.
I think it's because there are a lot of people making a lot of money in this moment who would want Americans to think that that's the only way life can be. And I don't hide this. You know, it's how I see the world. It's the world that I want. It's one of dignity. And it's funny, there's this one guy who comments under almost every one of my tweets, and he's like, he's a socialist. I'm like, yeah, it's in my bio. You know, this is who I am. And I think it's about being honest with New Yorkers. Because I've found, you know, Mayor Koch said this, that if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues, vote for me. 12 out of 12, see a psychiatrist. And I found that in New Yorkers, an ability to say, look, maybe I wouldn't call myself the same word, but I want the same things. And ultimately, you have to have a coalition that asks people of just one thing. We need to make the city affordable. We can have disagreement, we can have tension, but we have to have agreement on that one thing so that we can build a coalition that looks like the city of New York.
Now, sorry, but you are climbing the polls. Like, you just came out of nowhere, right? Why do you think the young people are riding with you?
You know, I think it's because people are hungry.
Because in the beginning, they didn't throw your name in the hat at first. It was just.
Look, let me tell you, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Astoria. This is right before we launched the campaign. Somebody in politics showed me a poll. And I was looking at the beginning of the poll, and they were like, no, keep looking. Keep looking. And then I was there at 1%.
Damn.
1%.
That's what you said.
Right.
Yeah.
How'd you make the poll rise?
Pause.
You know, I think
And by the way, this is crazy to me because it was the same story as Bernie in 2016. He just came out of nowhere. And I think that's important because it gave the establishment no ability to like prepare. They weren't expecting it. They weren't ready to resist it. They don't know what to do. They're scrambling. They're freaking out. You can see it now. You can see it every time Cuomo speaks or anyone who supports him speaks. They're freaking out. They don't know how to fight this guy. And it's because they weren't prepared. They didn't get the MO from the think tank. They didn't do their oppositional research. There's not much to oppose this guy on. He's like Bernie. It's like, what are you going to attack him over? There's nothing.
I think just by being consistent.
Yeah.
You know, from
He's a
the
good
beginning
guy.
of the race, from October 23rd, the first day, I said this was a campaign about affordability. I said this was a campaign about New Yorkers who have built this city, who are being pushed out of this city. And I said that I was going to do 3 things. I was going to freeze the rent. I was going to make the slowest buses in America fast and free. I was going to deliver universal childcare. And it got to the point where I can go to a rally and I can say, I'm going to freeze and the crowd will say rent. Buses fast and free, universal childcare. People know. And I think for too long, politics has become about a person as opposed to a platform. And New Yorkers see themselves in that. And, you know, growing up in this city, so many of the people that have helped to raise me, that I've grown up with, they haven't always seen themselves in our politics. They have, you know, they haven't voted in a lot of these elections. The last mayoral primary, 26% of Democrats voted. And most New Yorkers, when you ask them, when's the election? They'll tell you it's in November, not in June. Most people don't know about the importance of the primary. But I've been getting text messages from people that I've known for years and people that I've just met, just screenshots of voter registration that I'm going to vote for the first time. Wow. And that's meant the world to me, because if we really want to protect our democracy, one of the best ways of doing so is that people see themselves in it. People see themselves as participants. You can't protect it at an intellectual level. You have to protect it at an everyday level. And ultimately, going back to your question about democratic socialism, it's about extending that democracy from the ballot box to the rest of our lives. If you get to choose your own leaders, why shouldn't you be able to choose the economic conditions that you're living in? Why shouldn't you be able to ensure you have that dignity? And I think that what's so exciting is, as you said, a lot of this is powered by young people. You know, young people who so often political analysts will say, don't worry about them. They don't vote at the same rates. They don't come out. And it's been so exciting to see those same young people
They just turn the lights
be part
down.
of the 34,000
Oh,
volunteers.
there they go.
You know, it took us months to knock 150,000 doors in this city. Last week, we knocked that in 7 days alone. That's the level of momentum we're at, where people are just going all across the city. And my mother is one of these canvassers.
Yeah.
She has her weekly canvassing shift on Sunday. She's paired up with a 25-year-old who she complains walks too fast. They go up 6th floor walk up, and she goes through 10 consecutive knock doors. not homes. And then when she finally meets a voter and they say they're going to vote for me,
His
she
mother's a
says,
famous filmmaker also,
and
which
it's
might
that
explain
sense
why
of
he's so fucking good
everyone
on the camera.
is a
But
part
they
of
say
this.
they not.
She don't even tell him. She don't tell him. She don't tell him. She's like, I have my concerns as well.
But let me ask you, if you were the mayor and you see what's going on in LA, how would you handle that problem? If there was protesters, they were,
His mom is a famous filmmaker. His father is a professor of like post-colonial studies and the politics of knowledge production. Like, how scary is that background if you're like a Republican or a billionaire and you're like, you don't want any of that. You don't want someone who even knows what post-colonial means, and you don't want someone who's been in front of a camera and knows what to do. Like, he's just killer. He's just a once in a generation politician, I think.
breaking stuff, looting, smashing police cars, vandalizing things. Of course, Trump sending the troops. How would you handle that if you were mayor of New York City and that actually happened here?
I think first and foremost, you call it what it is. It's authoritarianism. This is the Trump administration looking to arrest enough migrants that they can say they fulfilled their campaign promise of building the single largest deportation force in American history. And too often we think about it as just an attack on immigrants. It's an attack on the fabric of this country. And it's not just in LA. I mean, we have New Yorkers who have been arrested and detained today. You know, a few days ago marked 3 months since a Palestinian New Yorker named Mahmoud Khalil was arrested in his apartment building lobby, taken away from his pregnant wife, Noor, and has since been in an ICE detention facility in Louisiana. He wasn't able to even witness the birth of his first child, Dean. And we have another New York City public high school student named Dylan, who was snatched at a regular check-in at Federal Plaza, is now hundreds of miles away from his mother and his two siblings. And this is personal for me because I got my citizenship just blocks from where those arrests are happening. Those blocks used to be my favorite part of New York City. It's where I got my citizenship, where I got married. And those are now the same blocks where when I took my father for his immigration interview this year, I hugged him so tight because I didn't know if I was going to see him in the afternoon. There are too many New Yorkers who are feeling that. And so I think you call this what it is. You also make clear that Trump is reversing historical precedent in that calling the National Guard is typically something a governor requests of the president. It's not something a president puts on a governor. And Kathy Hochul is someone who, as the governor of our state, has been able to fight Donald Trump and defend a lot of his potential attacks on this state. One of the first things I would do is work with her to make it clear that this has no room in our city. And our police force should not be assisting ICE in what they are conducting. You know, we recently saw arrests where the NYPD was then arresting a pastor and other New Yorkers who were observing ICE arresting migrants coming in for their check-ins. We don't need to be accomplices to authoritarianism. We need to show that there's another way of running this city and this country, and that's who I'm excited to be.
Could you explain to people why federal overreach is dangerous?
You know, it's so funny to see Republicans for whom so long their rallying cry has been states' rights. And now here they are. They don't have a concern for that at all. It's the same way that they used to care about free speech. That's gone as well. Ultimately, these are principles they only hold when are convenient to them. And what's so dangerous about this is that we have a clear delineation of what is a federal responsibility, what is a state responsibility, but Donald Trump wants to make every responsibility his. He wants to run a country in a manner that is more befitting of an authoritarian state. And I think what's so concerning is he's looking at the example of someone like Nayib Bukele and saying that this style of leadership, of having mass prisons where we send so many people who we allege are criminals, no matter whether we can find it or not.
That's El Salvador.
Yeah, that's what he wants to bring to this country. And I think what we need are Democrats who are willing to stand up and fight that. You know, we have a mayor right now who has wanted to fearmonger around sanctuary city policy. This is a policy we've had in this city for decades. It's a policy that's been defended by Republicans and Democrats alike. It allows for the city to work with the federal government if someone is convicted on 170 serious crimes. What it says, however, is outside of those, there should not be that collaboration. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, you've heard of Kilmar, the man in Maryland who was taken to El Salvador. If the city he was arrested in by ICE had sanctuary city laws, he would not have been able to be picked up. That's what we're preventing from happening. And still, with what we have in place, because we have a mayor who doesn't want to enforce it, because we have a mayor who wants to collaborate, still we see New Yorkers being picked up.
Let me ask you a question, right? Why is Donald Trump the Democrats' boogeyman? Because none of y'all are running against Trump. And to me, the biggest hurdle to the Democratic Party is the Democratic Party. The inaction of the Democratic Party over all of these years is the biggest hurdle for the Democratic Party now.
I don't disagree with you. That's part of my critique of Andrew Cuomo, is that he's the very kind of leadership that helped give rise to Donald Trump. Before Donald Trump was the president of this country, before he was a reality TV show host, he was a real estate developer in New York City. And he was someone who both parties had room for and time for. And I think that our ability to accommodate the very kind of real estate developers that have broken law after law after law is also part of what has given rise to an era of politics with no accountability. I mean, Andrew Cuomo had a video of Donald Trump playing at his own bachelor party. Like, that's the level in which all of this is enmeshed together. And I'm trying to chart a new course with this campaign alongside thousands of New Yorkers for a politics that is clearly distinct from that of Donald Trump. And I think when New Yorkers are shocked at Donald Trump's record of cutting Medicaid, of trying to steal hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA, of giving tax breaks to billionaires, of hounding the many women who have credibly come forward to accuse him, those are the same things you could say about Andrew Cuomo. We don't need a reflection of that in New York City. We need someone who is the opposite of that. And as a progressive Muslim immigrant who's willing to fight for the things I believe in, that's what makes me Donald Trump's worst nightmare.
But I saw you say that in the debate, you would be Trump's worst nightmare. But once again, why should that matter to anybody voting for you now? Because you're not running against Donald Trump.
No, but you are running against the authoritarianism that he's bringing to this city.
So you think Cuomo's an authoritarian?
No, I think that there's too many commonalities between him and Donald Trump's record. And my point is that you don't want to have a mayor who has to pick up a phone call from someone who cut a $250,000 check to both him and Donald Trump. You want to have a mayor who's willing to fight for the city and have that be the thing that he's ultimately.
Yeah, is this not? That's such a good answer. Like, the same billionaires who back Trump back Cuomo. So like, yeah, it kind of is about Trump.
Responsible for. And I think to your point,
or at least it's about those billionaires.
We also have to be honest about how we lost this presidential election. New York is the state that had the largest swing in the country towards Donald Trump, 11.5 points. And it happened far from the caricature of Trump voters. It happened in the hearts of immigrant New York City. I went to Fordham Road in the Bronx. I went to Hillside Avenue in Queens. And when I asked New Yorkers there, almost all of whom were Democrats, who did you vote for and why? Many told me they didn't vote. Many told me they voted for Trump. And they told me they voted for him because they remembered having more money in their pocket 4 years ago for their rent, for their child care, for their groceries, even for their MetroCard.
They remember how they feel. Yeah.
And as insincere and ridiculous and horrific as we know Trump's policies to be, that is how people felt. Those are the decisions that they made. And when I asked these same New Yorkers, what would it take to bring you back to the Democratic Party? They said a relentless focus on an economic agenda. I said, what would you say to a candidate running to freeze the rent, make buses fast and free, deliver universal child care? I said I'd vote for him. And that's when I introduced myself. And that's my point here, is that there are some Democrats like Andrew Cuomo who think that we went too far left in how we ran a campaign. And my point is that we actually betrayed working class voters a long time ago. And it's time to own up to that and finally fulfill the promises that were made decades ago.
Well, that's interesting, right? Because, you say Cuomo and Trump have so many similarities, but Cuomo has been a career Democrat. And that's why I feel like anybody who is going to be the future of the Democratic Party, you do have to throw that old regime under the bus. Because it's not just Cuomo.
But that bus is going to be free.
Oh, sure. But it's not just Cuomo in the Democratic Party. It's a lot of old leadership.
Absolutely.
It's the Chuck Schumers. It's the Bidens. You got to throw all of that under the bus and run it over. And people have to hear you say that, because I keep hearing y'all, you keep talking about Trump.
Dude, okay, I don't know if Charlemagne maybe hasn't. He said he watched the debate. One of the things Cuomo attacked Zohran over at the debate was that Zohran said that Obama was evil and a liar. Like, he tweeted that previously. If Zohran is publicly making statements like Obama is an evil and a liar, I'm pretty sure he's ready to throw them under the bus, Charlemagne. I don't think you got to worry about that with Zohran.
Trump, but your party has been just as ineffective and just as corrupt in a lot of ways.
Trust me, I hear you, because I've been critical about the style of leadership that gave rise to Donald Trump.
He literally said Obama is evil.
Within the Democratic Party. And I think for too long, it's been a party that has valued insider politics, pay your dues, the words and advice of consultants over the people that are Democrats themselves.
By the way, I
do think it's time for a new
I
generation.
would usually watch a longer video like this at like
Cuomo would be the
1.25
oldest
speed,
mayor
but
elected in New York City.
I
would
wanted us to
represent
like
a
just
completely
hear
new
the way he
generation.
speaks,
And I think
just
it's important
like
for that because
hear the way he interacts.
it's not just about age, it's not just about vision, it's also about what has your record been and who have you been fighting for, and is that distinct enough from what got us here?
Yeah, I just got a couple more questions. You said de Blasio was the best mayor in your lifetime for New York, and you gave 3 reasons. You said because he ended stop and frisk. Well, yeah, he ran on ending stop and frisk, taxing the rich, and funding universal pre-K. You said he got a lot of that done. How much of it did he get done?
Universal pre-K, I think, is one of the most shining examples of what city government can do, right? This is something that took tens of thousands of dollars off New York families' backs and made it easier to raise a family here. You know, I'm tired of hearing New Yorkers tell me that they're going to settle down.
I hope Breakfast Club endorses him, because who the hell are they going to endorse?
The suburbs, because they just can't make it
It's
work
him or Cuomo. Like, you got to
making it work
you
is making
can't
it
bullshit.
to have childcare. You know, today the average cost of childcare is $25,000 a year. That's more money than it costs to send that same kid to CUNY 18 years later. Those, I think, are accomplishments. Now, it's not to say that there is no critique of that time in office. I mean, I'm somebody who was on a 15-day hunger strike alongside thousands of working-class taxi drivers fighting that same administration for debt relief. And we were able to come to an agreement where we won $450 million in debt relief for those taxi drivers. And ultimately, I say this, though, because we have seen what's possible if we have someone focused on delivering it. And to me, the greatest mayor in New York City history is Fiorello LaGuardia, because he was someone who transformed our sense of the possible, and he put working people at the heart of his politics, and he did so while also confronting this rise in anti-immigrant hate all at the same time. And I think we need a mayor who has that ability to fight multiple crises at the same time and show what it means to be a New Yorker.
You said if you're elected mayor, Israel wouldn't let you in. And you mentioned some legislation, but would that legislation apply to you if you're actually mayor?
We've seen elected officials, even Congress people of this country, not be allowed into the state of Israel. And my point was, I've been asked this question many times, and I've said directly that I believe one need not visit Israel to stand
You
up
must
for
be
Jewish
at
New
least
Yorkers.
this
What I
Islamophobic
need
to
do
enter
is to
the
meet Jewish
Israel.
New Yorkers at their synagogues, at their temples, at their homes, subway platforms, parks, wherever they may be, to hear their concerns and actually deliver on those concerns. And then when I have been asked...
For those who don't know, it was pretty infamous at the debate. They asked all the candidates, like, where would you visit first if you became mayor? And pretty much all of them said Israel right away. And some of them were very creepily enthusiastic about it. And Zohran said that he would stay in New York to focus on his job of being mayor of New York. And then the moderator asked, instead of like moving on to the next person, the moderator decided to cut in and ask him specifically, do you believe in Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state? And, you know, and then followed it up again and again. And just... it was very awkward. And even the Trump voters were like, why are they bringing up Israel so much? Like, nobody thought it was normal. Nobody thought it was cool. So we're kind of like seeing the aftermath of that, which is like, isn't it weird how this brown guy keeps getting asked all these questions about Israel?
about this, what I've also said is that even if I was going to make that trip, there is legislation that does not allow anyone who supports a nonviolent movement calling for the compliance of the Israeli government with international law to be allowed into that state. And I say that to say that there has to be a greater recognition of what is going on. And the fact is, for me, my politics come back from a politics of the universal. I believe that freedom and justice and safety, liberty, these things have to apply to everyone for them to be meaningful. And that also includes Palestinians.
Why does it often seem like elected officials care about what's going on in other countries more than they care about what's happening here in America? Because, you know, you do realize it's hard to think about starving kids somewhere else when your kids are starving right now.
My focus is right here in New York City. This is a question that's been asked of me time and time again. And ultimately, I think it's actually a question that, as you're saying, is not actually in line with the top concerns of New Yorkers, not even in line with the top concerns of Jewish New Yorkers. You know, when you see in a poll, what are those top concerns? The number one is affordability. After that, it's child care, it's elder care, it's discrimination. These are all New York City issues. And I think that we need to have a mayor who is focused on New York City. And that's why when I was asked in the debate, where's your first trip abroad going to be? I said, I'm going to be here in New York City. And then I was asked, followed up, are you going to go to Israel? And I said, one need not go to Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers. And then I was asked, it just continues.
It was so funny.
But for me, the focus has to be the 5 boroughs. I mean, you are running to be the mayor of this city. This is a city that is losing hundreds of thousands of people in the last few years alone because they can't afford it. They're going to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, anywhere their dollar can go a little further. And we know that, as the saying goes, when white America catches a cold, black America catches pneumonia. That inequality is compounded for black New Yorkers. We lost 200,000 black New Yorkers in 2 decades. About 9% of the city's population of black New Yorkers. From 2010 to 2019, nearly 20% of black children and teenagers had to leave the city. And that is a crisis that has to be focused on.
That's like ethnic cleansing by economic means, like literally.
Conversations about affordability, free healthcare, making buses free, freezing the rent on rent-stabilized apartments. Why is that considered far left?
Come on.
I'm just saying, why is it?
It's common sense.
But why can't y'all message that better? I think you got to get rid of that word socialism. My man Killer Mike used to tell Bernie Sanders to use the term compassionate capitalism. Or maybe just talk about what it is you want to do constantly instead of getting caught up in those labels. I mean,
I think it's both important to tell people where this belief comes from, but what I always foreground is what this belief will mean for someone. People want to know, how are you going to help them in their life, in their struggle? The reason we focused this entire campaign on affordability is that's what New Yorkers told us. When you ask them, what are you struggling with? They'll tell you rent. They'll tell you childcare. They'll even tell you public transit, because I know to many people, $290 doesn't feel like a lot.
I think the whole Breakfast Club is on the Zohran train now.
That's the state of inequality in this city. While income inequality has declined in the country, it's increased in New York City. This is the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And so, to what you're saying, these are common sense policies. And also, when they're polled, they even sometimes have support of majority of Republicans because they speak to what people are actually going through.
That's it. All people want is some more money in their pocket, and they want to feel safe.
Look,
that's it.
Well, if they want to support you, how can they go out and support you?
Well, what I would tell them is come to ZohranforNYC.com. Don't donate to us. We've already raised the maximum we can spend in this campaign, but do give us something more valuable, which is your time. We're building a team of 34,000 people, New Yorkers from all walks of life, knocking on doors, talking to their neighbors. Come on out, canvas. It would be a joy to have you.
You don't have to be in New York. You can phone bank for them. You can call people up. Say, give the guy a chance.
Oh, come on. So look,
don't rank Cuomo, for God's sake.
Bring that corporate tax rate over from New Jersey.
When's the election?
June 24th, but early voting starts June 14th, and we're confident we can win this, but only with the help of New Yorkers.
Well, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Zohran, Kwame, Mama Donnie. I appreciate it.
Mom
Donnie.
Hit it one more time.
All right. Zohran, Kwame, Mom Donnie.
There we go.
My goodness. My goodness.
Make that poll rise.
Let's get the polls up. There you go.
Wow.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up.
All right. I wonder if they know who Kwame is. Kwame was the first president of Ghana. He was a revolutionary. He threw away the colonialists, but that's just a low-key thing. All right, so this happened. Did this happen right before this? When was this? 5 days ago? This was like 5 days ago. So this might have happened like literally the night before that Breakfast Club
mi
interview.
gente. Estamos aquí. We are here at the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and I am here loud and proud to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 for mayor of New York City.
What New Yorkers are looking for is a mayor who will actually fight for them.
I have so much faith in him as a leader for our city.
I think this is an AOC video. I don't think this is a Zohran video. You can tell a Zohran video. They're way wackier.
New York City for the working class.
Say, Zohran, repeat after me.
Okay, here we go.
Puerto Rico
no
se vende.
no se vende. And what we want to do
Not
is
for
turn
sale,
the page
that's
on
what that
era
means.
of failed leadership.
Make sure you vote early, June 14th, or you can vote on Election Day, June 24th. And make sure that you do not rank Andrew Cuomo on your ballot. Don't do it, folks.
Especially in
AOC is such a
when we
queen,
see
though. Oh my
immigrants under
God.
attack, we need to have a mayor that will stand up.
There
for
were so
every
many
single
people
New
like, when's she gonna endorse? Is she gonna endorse? Oh, I hate her if she doesn't endorse. Why hasn't she endorsed? She's just trying to jump in once he's already on top. But the fact is, a lot of people don't know this election's going on still, and a lot of people, even in New York, weren't paying attention to it until recently. So if AOC jumps in early and endorses him when no one's paying attention, like, you know what I mean? she endorsed at the time to like maximize her impact. As soon as like Zohran's getting close to Cuomo in the polls, AOC endorsed. I think AOC endorsed him after the first poll came out where he's actually leading. He is fun. I dare say he's more fun though. He's so fucking cool. I don't know where to. Actually, I have an idea. Let's just watch it. Let's just watch a random Zohran video because his videos are sexy as hell. Where's his TV ad? I want to watch his TV ad. Hold on, I'll put this on while we watch the TV ad.
I'm about to say something to you you've never heard a politician say. Please stop sending us money. Thanks to the close to 18,000 of you that have
he's
donated to our campaign,
unreally
we've
good
now raised
at
the maximum
in front of the
amount money
camera.
spent in
Like
this
just
race, $8 million.
he's
This
so
means
good
we
at
have the money
this.
to be on TV, in your mailbox, on your phone. But there's one more place we need to be. Your block. That's why I'm putting out the call to New Yorkers. Assemble! We want to create the single
What's
largest
this one?
volunteer operation in New York City history, and we need your help. So join the more than 7,000 New Yorkers already knocking on doors and sign up to canvass.
Hold on, I'll show you one of his TV
NYC.com
ads.
/events.
This shit's hilarious. Why is it muted? I hate how TikTok randomly mutes things sometimes and randomly. Yeah, like why does it default to muted? This is annoying. Something wrong. Let me turn that up.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Yes.
Hey.
Did I hear rent freeze?
Yes! This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
No hike?
None.
This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
Paid for by Zohran
Hell yeah.
for NYC.
Isn't that fucking clean as hell? He's so good at it. Something up with this guy. Hold on, I want to find, where's that other funny one? Is it this one? No. It's wait, popular. Yeah, this one's fun.
My
this
team
one's
says
fun.
I move my hands too much in these videos. So for this one, they're staying in my pockets. The other day on the subway, I met a New Yorker. But get this, they vote in California. I know this is true for many of you. You're Democrats who've chosen not to vote here because you believe your vote counts more elsewhere. Every 4 years, you vote absentee from your parents' address in Philly or 3 apartments ago in Atlanta. But come on, you live here. I get it, I do.
Keep them in your pocket.
Especially after this last election. We all wanted to defeat Donald Trump, and New York felt like a lock. But in many ways, this election, Trump's back on the ballot. We have a choice between Andrew Cuomo, funded by the same billionaires who put Donald Trump back in the White House, and our campaign, who will tax billionaires to make the city affordable. It's a referendum on where our party goes. So in just this one instance, ask yourself, WWDFGD, what would a disgraced former governor do? Well, Cuomo changed his registration immediately after not having lived here for more than 30 years. So if he's voting from his new address, so should you. With just single digits between us and Andrew Cuomo, your vote can make the difference. You have until June 14th, this Saturday, to change your registration in New York City. So head to ZohranForNYC.com /vote. Let's win this thing. I do.
Keep them in your pockets.
My team says I move my hands too much in these videos. So
Is he not the greatest? Is this not the greatest politician you've ever seen? I think it's the greatest politician I've ever seen. Yeah. This one's hilarious too. Wait, hold on. We'll watch one more because these are just really good.
20 दिन बचे हैं. Or choice
He fucking learned Urdu. He learned Spanish better. He's learning languages better to do these campaign. He's learning languages just to do these fucking campaign videos, and they're so fucking good. When you're running in New York, this is not something someone's done. This is what I mean. He's changing the standards for like campaign videos, like globally. I feel like just watch.
मेरे और एंड्रू कोमो के बीच में है. अगर आप पहली बार इलेक्शन के बारे में जान रहे हैं तो ये है जो एंड्रू कोमो ऑफर कर रहा है. आज मेरे पास बिल्डिंगें हैं, प्रॉपर्टी है, बैंक बैलेंस है.
He's doing the fucking
क्या है तुम्हारे पास?
The Hindi.
आपकी वजह से हमने $8 मिलियन रेज किया है. 6 लाख से ज्यादा दरवाजे खटखटाए हैं. और बस इतने करीब है इस शहर का पहला साउथ एशियन मेयर बनाने के लिए। पर बात ये नहीं है कि मैं क्या बनूंगा, बात ये है कि मैं क्या करूंगा हमारे कम्युनिटीज के लिए और हर एक न्यूयॉर्कर के लिए। मैं हमारे शहर को अफोर्डेबल बनाऊंगा। न्यूयॉर्कर्स मुश्किल से अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं रोटी।
And hold on, I think this is the one they do the Bollywood effects.
रेंट फ्री बसेस, यूनिवर्सल चाइल्ड केयर और सस्ती ग्रोसरीज के जरिए। पर आपको एक सवाल पूछना
It's like shit we wouldn't even recognize.
तुमने कभी किसी को वोट किया? कभी किसी को रैंक किया? देखो, यहाँ न्यूयॉर्क सिटी में हम रैंक चॉइस वोटिंग यूज करते हैं।
It's Bollywood references.
एक कैंडिडेट को
For people who watch Bollywood, they'd be like, "Oh, I know these style of cuts. This is like
पसंद के हिसाब से।
like
सोचिए, ये
Sorry, I just want to. His media team is so good. They know how to direct and cut videos in ways that are like reminiscent of other cultures, like media and the way they do their like they can produce. They're not just like making. It's like they're not just making one genre of video. They can make all the genres of videos. It's insane. And he's using the fucking mango chutney to explain ranked voting to immigrants. Like, this is OD. This is like 3 levels past what any other politician can do. Like, this is.
और मैं ये वाला ये सिस्टम ऐसे काम करता है। सबसे पहले
like this is what the government should be doing. The government should be using mango chutney to explain to South Asian immigrants how fucking ranked choice voting. You know what I mean? Like
वो आपके नेक्स्ट चॉइस को चला जाता है। ये प्रोसेस तब तक चलता है जब तक किसी कैंडिडेट के पास आधे से ज्यादा वोट्स ना हो जाएं।
The little confetti effects too. It's so Bollywood coded.
ज्यादा आपकी बैलेट और आवाज में ताकत होती है। इसलिए मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप मुझे ज़ोहरान ममदानी को अपने बैलेट पे पहले नंबर पे रैंक कीजिए और सिर्फ मुझे नहीं बाकी बैलेट भी जरूर
fill out the rest of the ballot.
दूसरे कैंडिडेट्स हैं जिनको आप रैंक कीजिए।
We're going to talk about the rankings in a minute.
एंड्रू कोमो को रैंक नहीं करना। उसका कैंपेन ट्रंप के डोनर्स के पैसों से चल रहा है। अगर वो जीता तो डीसी के साथ-साथ NYC भी उनका होगा। विश्वास नहीं होता तो उनसे सुनिए कि क्या होगा अगर कोमो जीता तो।
See, like, how deep does his fucking team run? Like, I don't know what that reference is, but I bet every Indian person in New York does pretty much. Dude is fucking fire. But we're gonna talk about, so this was an interesting video. We'll just see this quick. Oh yeah, we can watch his rap videos after. You can see the Heem's inspiration for sure.
There's a socialist Muslim Indian rapper, former rapper, who was raised in Central Africa, who is running to be the next mayor of New York City. And with just a couple of weeks before the primary election, polls are showing that it's not just possible, but it seems like there's a pretty good chance that he's going to win and become the next mayor of New York City. I've been championing. I've been supporting him for a while, and his name is Zohran Mamdani. His mom is a revered Indian filmmaker, and his dad is a
she's super famous actually.
Whose work I actually leaned very heavily on to make a video about Congo.
And yeah, his dad's like a world-renowned academic on post-colonial studies.
At least a little bit about Zohran's platform. So let's cut to the chase and talk through the magic of these videos, including.
He really has the message. He really gets the values, the philosophy behind, you know, leftism and progressivism and all that.
We're gonna get to the
He really has the media skills and the on-camera skills to fucking deliver that message.
Okay, so if you live in New York City, you know that this is one of the most pervasive issues, like just normal everyday issues that you don't have in effectively any other city on the planet. If you talk with someone from like, I don't know, suburban Minneapolis or whatever, they're not talking about halalflation. But the issue is you go to a halal cart and you try to get a chicken over rice, lamb over rice type of thing. And just like this is saying right here, it's like $10, sometimes $12, which is insane because just a few years ago, it could have been as cheap as like $5. But now it's more than doubled in price. And highlighting that everyday issue that so many people feel, I feel like it's such a direct call to like the common working man. Like you're not seeing Andrew Cuomo walking around on the streets eating halal food. Like there's no chance. He's going to his fine dining restaurants. He's going to his Peter Luger's if he ventures, into Brooklyn.
How much do you have to pay for your permit?
Before it was 22K.
17,000. How much does a license cost if you get it from the city?
I think 400.
Who are you paying?
The permit owner.
You're not paying the city?
No.
You pay the permit owner $22,000 just so you can sell this food?
Yes.
And who is this?
Random guy.
If you have to pay rent to
Hold
some
on.
dickhead who has the permit, and there's
Yeah.
no chance for you to get a permit directly from the source, which costs less than, I don't know, what is it, a tenth of what the actual permit costs? That's crazy. Of course you're going to jack up the prices. Yeah, that makes total sense. This is the exact same problem that we see with rents going sky high, where there's this class of people who exclusively make their income by jacking up the price of having a roof over your head. And it makes sense because in that case, of course, it's much worse. But the point is, if you have that constant overhead cost, in this case, of course, it's rent. But in the case of halal carts, the fee that you have to pay to some jackass in the middle between you and the city government, yeah, of course, you're going to have to increase prices. You could have someone like Whitney Tilson who stands in a Costco and goes, oh, well, actually, my solution for the high grocery prices is to bring in more Costcos. But he has no charisma, no riz. He looks like a type of guy who, if you see him in a bar, even if you're a dude, you're going to cover your drink.
I hate
'cause you're
him so
freaked out by
much.
the guy. Zohran goes into these halal carts, stands next to the guy in his halal cart, and chats him up and has an honest conversation. And I feel like, love him or hate him, there's something to be said about that.
These are the 4 bills that are sitting in the city council right now, which would give these
He
vendors
just
their own
runs
permits and make
towards
them a
the
lot more
camera. I
affordable.
love
Eric
it.
Adams hasn't said a single word about them. If you own the permit, then how much would you charge for the plate?
$7, $8.
If I was the mayor, I'd be working with city council from day 1 to make halal $8 again.
I'm not kidding. If he were to run solely on this one issue, make halal $8 again, I guarantee he could get at least 10% of the vote.
Fíjense, nadie sabe pronunciar mi apellido. Es Mamdani, pero
Es Mamdani, pero a cada rato me dicen Monari. When this video came out, there was so much backlash from insane organizations like the New York Post, who said that he used like AI to do this or something like that, which is hilarious because they released the behind the scenes afterwards, and listening to him trying to perfect his Spanish, it's hilarious.
Pero en estos días. Sorry. Construir 200 viviendas nuevas y permanentemente no tiene. Y asegurarme. I have no idea.
So 50.9% of residents of New York City speak only English. However, that means half of residents do not speak English in their household. And of that half, 50% of those speak Spanish. That's almost 2 million residents out of 7.8 million total who only speak Spanish at home. Having a video like this in which you can communicate so directly with the populace who you are trying to represent and trying to not just like pander to them, but win their vote, earn their vote, show them that like you care about them, so much so to the point where you're willing to sit down and learn some lines in Spanish. That's insane. That's incredible. You can see the shadows on the building behind him, right? So there's some pretty direct light. By the time this video is over, it is literally nighttime. It is literally nighttime. Like very clearly, this took him hours to, learn the lines, learn the Spanish, practice. That shows his commitment to the bit. And that is something that whether you speak Spanish, English, Hindi, whatever it is, like it's going to resonate with you. And speaking of Hindi,
this one. Okay, he's going to talk about the chutney video
honestly,
we just
you might
watched.
be really impressed that he's speaking a different language. But Zohran actually has a little bit of history of doing just that.
I love this shit too. Yeah, how many languages does this guy know is another question.
This type of video is going to go nutty in the WhatsApp.
What do they speak in Uganda? Like Swahili or something? I don't even know.
New York City mayoral candidate speaking your native tongue that basically no one in politics in America speaks in is a huge deal.
It is a big, this is what I'm saying. If you're an immigrant, nobody speaks your language, you hear this politician speaking your language, it's a big deal. It's cool. It's what, like, this is what all politicians should probably be doing.
One of the most important parts of these videos is hammering home his core platform. Obviously, it's centered around affordability. Within that, you have freezing the rent, making buses fast and free, universal childcare. And then beyond that, an extension of this platform that we've seen in the past couple months.
The chutney was brilliant.
City-run grocery stores. Very clearly. This is not some sort of...
Yeah, they speak Swahili.
Otherwise, I frankly...
So he knows Swahili, he knows English, I'm pretty sure he knows Hindi. He knows Spanish, at least well enough to talk decent.
It is so beautiful. And it fits so well with the theme of this video.
Dude, the fact that a Swahili rapper is gonna become the mayor of New York is so fucking funny. Like,
messaging, the authenticity,
we're back. We're on the good timeline. That's what I'm saying. This is the good timeline.
The image actually looks phenomenal job.
And yeah, and I guess because his mom's a famous Indian filmmaker, that he's pretty good at the Bollywood style stuff. It might have something to do with it. But we love it. Oh, we can watch this one after too. All right, hold on. All right, so this was so he's saying to rank them. And so I'll just cover a few more things about this race that are going on that are kind of interesting. So On the 11th, this thing came, and we won't read the article because Politico are insane. They're far right, but I mean they pretend to be liberal, but it's owned by a Trump guy, and they just don't like Zohran. It's pretty obvious by what they write below. But right here, the latest poll that they did had Mamdani at 35% to Cuomo at 31%. Now that it's a ranked vote, and that's only the first round, but you would kind of assume that because there's so much opposition to Cuomo and so many of the other candidates are like attacking Cuomo a lot, if you look at the debates and stuff, like if Zohran is winning the first round, the later rounds probably favor him more. So he's like a popular, like, you know, second or third choice if they're going to rank someone else first, right? So this is the first poll that came out where Mamdani was winning. And remember, like he said, a few months back, he was at 1%. He's winning by 4% now, according to this poll. And yeah, we'll see. And realistically, the final vote could be even more than that, because like I said, this is just who's your first choice, but it's a ranked system. So assuming the people who didn't, you know, this is 35 plus 31, 66%. So assuming the other third of New Yorkers who didn't rank Cuomo or Mamdani first, more of them will probably break towards Mamdani than Cuomo. So I expect that lead to even grow. This happened the other day. So Brad Lander has kind of emerged as like the third place candidate. So this is like the third place candidate in the race. He's a fair bit behind, but they released this video 3 days ago, and it's fire. It's a great video, but it's huge also.
Hey, good morning.
How's it going?
Please go second.
No, I insist you go second.
How about I go first and you go second?
Well,
we both love New York City.
And that's why it's so important to not send scandal-ridden, corrupt Andrew Cuomo to City Hall.
New Yorkers deserve so much better than a disgraced creep.
Agreed.
Zohran, you've done a remarkable job building a historic grassroots campaign for a New York City all New Yorkers can afford.
Brad, you've been a principled, progressive leader in our city for years.
Early voting starts tomorrow, and we both know what we need to do to save our city from Andrew Cuomo. You want to tell him?
You go first.
Nah, you go first.
Let's do it together. We're cross-endorsing.
In New York City, we have ranked choice voting. That means you can rank up to 5 candidates for mayor.
Brad and I are officially telling our supporters.
Rank me number one, rank Zohran number 2. Let's send Andrew Cuomo
back to the suburbs.
Aren't they cute? Isn't that cute? Isn't that cute?
Hey, good morning.
How's it going?
Please
also,
go second.
This is the first time in New York history that candidates have cross-endorsed each other like this. So not only is he making waves with, like, obviously his background, his beliefs, his media strategy, the way he puts out videos and goes viral on TikTok and all groundbreaking, all stuff we've never seen before. Just like the content and the style of the videos, all this. Now he's showing that his strategy is unprecedented too. No, people have never been able to come together, 2 candidates in this ranked choice voting system in New York, and actually cross-endorse. And this is really important because this Lander guy has emerged as kind of the third. He did pretty well in the debates. I think that Stringer guy, the older guy, was leading before, but I think Lander is now the third place candidate. So, you know, from Mamdani's point of view, again, if Mamdani is roughly even or possibly leading Cuomo as a first choice, and if the third place guy is now saying, okay, if you vote for me first, make sure you vote for Cuomo second and don't rank Cuomo, then like this is basically all Zohran needed to, I won't say guarantee himself first, because I really don't know what will happen. But this is like the best thing he could have done strategically, is say, okay, third place guy, get your guys to endorse me, and then I'll endorse you as the second choice. And so, you know, for Lander, it makes sense as well, because this is going to guarantee, hey, he's in third pretty much if Zohran's people all choose him second. So that is really, really impressive and cool. All right, let's watch one of his rap songs. Because I'm going to subscribe to his rap account too, because it only has 1.66K followers, and I feel like he needs more followers. The video has like 200,000 views.
I'm going to make you a countryside chicken curry.
We like this.
My name is Praveen. Hello, everyone.
£1.5 of chicken. Stir and fry it again.
Mom? You're living in our house now, Mom. We're not living in yours. Why do I have to keep telling you this? And then on Wednesday, you forget to pick up Nikhil from school. All of your meddling and these questions and the TV serials has caused you to lose sight of the fact that you are not a good nanny. I'm the best damn nanny that you ever done seen. Fuck top 5 nannies and fuck top 3. I'm the number 1 nanny. Don't fuck with me. Fuck any of the nannies as they better than Praveen. Cause I'm 85 years old, 85 years cold, 85 years with my family on my back. So I'll outlast everybody on my fucking haters. Don't know me now, then you never know me later. Say, I be in an elevator. To the top, go and find your own waiter. Drinking a little water ball for me by my waiter. Not just anyone, but the hair fucking major. At the top, we're at peace. Got a great grandkid, man, fucking ace. Wrapped in a shawl just in case I cool breeze. But you never catch me, better just catch Sace.
Why is Charlemagne a hater? This is cool.
To you, bow down for you, hit the ground for you, make a sound for you. This a nunny anthem, Jimmy another band time, weight class, whoop ass, and hold you for ransom. Got a grandson that's handsome and then some, spends his income on dim sum to fill time. You talking retention, me, I'm talking expansion. Got the whole squad here, keep 'em at the tension, and I'm not in the business of taking no tension. So gather round now, celebrate me. I'm your boss, I'm your fucking honey. Got a doctorate, bitch, so don't fucking try me. Don't need a nano, cause I'm living my G. Kitty kitty my G. Run this whole city like a Ramiyati. Stay setting people up, MC at the shawty. If you see me in the streets, don't be asking Guani. Bow down for you. Hit the ground for you. Make a sound for you.
He's a really famous actor also. I think she's a knight or something in Britain. I don't know.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny. It's a rap. Get the guap, spin the rack on your nanny. Spin the rack. Come through, give a dab to your nanny. If you really feel it.
This is really cool.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny. It's a rap. Get the guap, spin the rack on your nanny.
And the Heems / Das Racist influence, it's so real. Isn't that good? I think that's really good. I think that's sick, personally. Shout out New York. And we say, don't fuck this up, New York. Don't fuck this up. Everyone's watching. Well, not everyone's. People will watch. People will know about this. People will say, hey, what the hell happened? Did you elect the guy or not? People will say that. So I hope that they do it. I hope they elect the guy. Let's pray for New York, everyone. Or better than pray, if you know any humans in the New York area, you know what to tell them. And actually, like, you don't even have to be from if you just know somebody who cares about life on Earth, then maybe they could do some phone banking or something. They could, especially if they can pull off a good New York accent, they phone around, it's pretty legit sounding. Maybe one of your, if someone who's a little bit Italian or something, just get them to do some phone banking. It'll probably have effects. Anyway,